Manu and his Manaswati. So, in today's class, we are going to discuss about Kautilya's political uh, concepts like Saptanga theory, statecraft, and also the political idea. So, first we have
సార్ మీ వాయిస్ లోగా వస్తుందండి.
close అవుతుందా? హలో, ఇప్పుడు ఓకేనా?
ఎస్ సార్.
ఓకే, ఫైన్. So, so Kautilya means he is the one of the first Indian political thinker for our political science. So if you see the his personal details, so Kautilya is from Magadha Empire. So Kautilya is traditionally identified with Chanakya, the Prime Minister of Chandragupta Maurya. He is the king of Magadha. So it is located in present Bihar. So it is his monumental work is Arthashastra, as we discussed in sources of Indian political thought. So Kautilya's Arthashastra is one of the important source for our ancient Indian political thought. So the subject and matter of Arthashastra is very comprehensive as it has 32 divisions and 15 books and about 150 chapters about statecraft. So the Arthashastra is more a manual of the administrator than a theoretical work. So if we see, so Kautilya's Arthashastra is considered as the pioneer of economics and political science. So in the Western world, he has been referred to as Indian Machiavelli. So although his works predate Machiavelli's by about 1800 years, so Kautilya was a teacher of in Takshila, so an ancient center of learning and was responsible for the creation of Mauryan Empire. So the first of its kind on the Indian subcontinent. So his works were lost near the end of the Gupta dynasty and not rediscovered until the early 20th century. So the two classics that are said to be Kautilya's creations are the Arthashastra and the Niti Shastra. So the Arthashastra is also known as Chanakya Niti. So it discusses monetary and fiscal policies, welfare, international relations, and war strategies in detail. So Niti Shastra is a treatise on the uh, ideal way of life and shows Kautilya's in-depth study uh, of the Indian way of life. So, in the Arthashastra, Kautilya specifically described the duties of Council of State and of the Council of Ministers. So, according to Kautilya, a state should completely dominate its economy and taxation and pricing policies. Uh, and also, Kautilya developed a labor theory of value for determining just wage workers as he understood the concepts of demand and supply and their combined influence on price. So he even wrote uh, explicitly on foreign trade, interest, and money. So, so if you see the theory of statecraft or a revolution dawned on the Indian political path with the discovery of Kautilya's Arthashastra in 1904. So, a manuscript of the text along with the commentary on a small part of it by a writer named Bhatta Swamin was handed over by a Pandit of Tanjavur district of to Samashastri. He is a librarian in Mysore Government Oriental Library. Mr. Shama Shastri was first published a report of his finding of an Indian antiquary published at Bombay of in January 1905. So Indian and experts closely scrutinized the original documents over the years and Shama Shastri's Indian translation was successfully revised until it made the most rigorous criticism of qualified contest and experts. So subsequently, the authenticity of the Ardhashastra as the work of primary significance of Hindu politics was completely established. This is the foundation and founding details of Ardhashastra in the time of 1904 and 5 by Shama Shastri. So, however, the issue of exact authorship of Ardhashastra is still in doubt even after continuing examination, analysis, and debate. Several questions remain open. Was the Kautilya who wrote the Arthashastra the same Kautilya who ruled the Mauryan Empire with Chandragupta? So many questions are also there. So the fact is that only little reliable knowledge has been acquired about the author of Arthashastra. So the author subscribes himself as Kautilya at the end of the each of the 150 chapters of the work. Uh, however, despite varied views as regards the authorship, the Ardhashastra is all agree the most important work in Hindu politics. So its era of intense political realism and concern of practical problems of administration, adjudication, and governmental control distinguish it from more theoretical works of earlier Brahmana schools. So, moreover, acute insights are given to an analysis of the politics of the Mauryan Empire. So, the Brahmana statesman is credited as being, if not the author of the entire Arthashastra, at least the guiding spirit behind its compilation and thesis. For the purpose of this study, the most important element to be considered is that the Indian tradition credits Chanakya as the author of Arthashastra. So, modern Indian scholars almost without exception hold that this tradition is correct. So, the leaders of Indian nationalism, so far as they have recorded their position, maintain that Kautilya was the minister and Shastra writer and the Arthashastra is a true product of Indian political thought and the practical politics of Chandragupta's empire. So the Indian tradition thus considers that Chanakya, the statesman, was Kautilya. So the author and the guiding spirit of the art of politics. So this is the story of Kautilya's Ardhashastra. So if you see the Kautilya Ardhashastra, as the name indicates, as a treatise on Ardhashastra. Ardha is the uh, sustenance or livelihood of men. In the other words, it means the earth inhabited by man. So, Ardhashastra is the science which is the means of the acquisition and protection of the earth. So, since the very early times, Ardha has stood for material well-being, and such as Ardhashastra is primarily concerned with the general well-being on earth, so which can be made possible by the state actively alone. So this Ardhashastra is the science dealing with the state affairs. So it is the science of statecraft or of politics or and administration. So the Ardhashastra literature diversing itself from moral philosophy, order, devoted itself to practical, political, and administration matters within the greater moral order. So, since the Hindu tradition makes no distinction between economics and politics, both are somewhat merged in Arthashastra. So, in modern times, many historians and political thinkers called as Indian Machiavelli. So the customary comparison between Kautilya and Machiavelli is resulted in the portrayal of Kautilya as the Machiavelli of India by thinkers like G.P. Bhattaji and Tilbury. uh, the difference in the political outlook of Kautilya and Machiavelli are essentially rooted to the long Indian tradition of culture and politics on which Kautilya drew and which, while conceding autonomy of different branches of knowledge, so it recommends an integrated view of life. So because of this tradition, Kautilya does not diverge political issues from the ethical ones. So as such as prevents Kautilya's political philosophy from degenerating into a ruthless device from acquiring power for its own sake. So, in spite of its emphasis on the need of consolidate power, it does not treat this power as the end, but as same. So, the suggestions of Machiavelli deficit inside. He believed that it was not necessary for the government to be human or ethical. So, uh, so especially the Ardhashastra refers to numerous previous teachers and claims to be a systematic compendium of the ancient teaching. So, as a result, Ardhashastra appears to be a tremendously comprehensive work. So, the work is characterized by its absolutely realistic philosophy and practical approach to the science of politics. So, like Machiavelli, Kautilya has produced a theory of government in which the end justifies the means. So, Kautilya as a traditionalist, Kautilya remains as a traditionalist when he conceives of the state as the political organism. So, he also discussed the state in the traditional terms of uh, Pratyangabhuta are the seven limbs of the state. So, what we call it as Saptanga theory. So in the Saptanga theory, seven limbs of the state. which means one is king, the minister, the country, and the fort, the treasury, the army, and the friend. And the enemy are the elements of sovereignty. So he goes on to explain that accepting the enemy, these seven elements possessed of their excellent characteristics are said to be limb-like elements of sovereignty. So, as such, from the initial premise, Kautilya proceeds to analyze the interworkings of the seven elements and the functions of the state. So, Kautilya has an obvious preference for the monarchical state. So, however, there is one passage in which he parenthetically deals with conditions of planned republics or kulas and admits that some of them possess the twofold merit, invincibility and permanence. So, here according to Kautilya, the king being the first element of the organic state is dealt with in general along with the lines of the earlier Dharma Sutras. So the canonical writers mentioned only the rudiments of public administration and Ardhashastra being secular deals with both the state and the king is more concerned with the ethical and the moral aspects of sovereignty. So Kautilya must have assumed that the dharma of the king was fully understood from the uh, sacred literature. So therefore it was not necessary for him to deal overlong on this subject. So since Kautilya's state could not rely upon any popular feeling of nationalism. It had to rely on the absolute personal loyalty of subjects for the king. So he urges that the prince receive rigorous intellectual, moral discipline. So the former involving the study of the four traditional science under the tutelage of specially qualified Brahmanas and the latter centering on the control of the senses and as to develop royal character. So the prince should enjoy uh, pleasures within the limits of his swadharma and must never disregard virtue and wealth. So he makes clear that the king's education and self-control is the first requisite of successful government. So elsewhere, Kautilya addresses the prince. The observance of one's own duty leads to one to Svarga and infinite bliss. So when it is violated, the world will come to an end owing to confusion of castes and duties. Hence, the king shall never allow people to uh, swerve from their duties. So Kautilya accepts the theory of Matsya, the logic of the fish, for his the science of politics for the Kali Yuga. So he impresses on the monarch the fact that king exists solely for the sake of righteousness and never for self gratification. So since Kautilya accepts the organic social order, which is based on dharma. So, dharma and varna and ashrama, varnashrama dharma. So, he teaches that it is primary duty of the king to see that each caste and each ashrama scrupulously observe their proper dharmas. So the king must, according to Kautilya, avoid those causes that produce evils among the people. So if the king follows these injunctions, the state will be strong, so prosperous and victorious. So moreover, the king must act vigorously the consciousness of discharge of royal duties being his performance of sacrifice and his uh, consecration of Brahma. So his happiness must lie in the happiness of his subjects. So according to Kautilya, the king uh, in the Kautilyan state is by far the most important element of the seven limbs of the state. So so, if you see the Saptanga theory in detail, the Saptanga indicates seven limbs. So, constants are elements. So, together they constitute the state as an organism, like a chariot composed of seven parts, fitted and subservient to the one another. So, to an extent, the Saptanga theory of state finds elaboration in the ancient Greek political philosophy. For instance, while comparing the state with the human body, Plato had argued that just as a cut in the finger causes pain in the body, similarly, injury of one organ creates problems for the other organs of the body. So, here, seven angas, prakritis, or elements were enumerated and elucidated by Kautilya for describing the nature of the state in its totality. So, if you see, the first limb or first element is Swami, or the sovereign king. So, as we discussed, as king uh, is the highest place in the body politic. So the Swami is the chief executive head of the state and the consummation of all other elements. So the word Swami is derived from the word Swayam, which refers to self-determining. So the Swami therefore becomes a living and eminent embodiment. So, according to Kautilya, uh, a comprehensive list of four broad categories of qualities which constitute the ideals of Swami. So, one is qualities of an inviting nature. Second one is qualities of intellect and intuition. And the third one is quality of enthusiasm. And the fourth one is qualities of self-restraint and skill. So this categorization of qualities supplements the usual notion of kingship being characterized by coercion and subordination of people. So finally, the king was not to be a despot exercising power through sheer military force, but was to rule his subjects through affection. Accordingly, the duties and the functions that he is called upon to perform are of two types. If you see, one is protective functions and the second one is promotive functions. Protective means the king being a natural guardian of the state and the savior of his people. Kautilya expects him to perform the following functions, which means he should put down violence and maintain law and order. He should avert dangers and command the army to redress people's grievances, to punish the wrongdoers, and administer justice impartially and in accordance with the with the law, evidence, history, and enacted law. And the second one is promotive functions. On the other hand, his promotive functions, including the following, that he should promote the moral and material happiness and welfare of his people, as in their uh, just a second. So, so in this promotive functions category, the king in the exercise of these functions, Kautilya's king was all powerful. The limits of this authority were imposed by the social and religious customs of his state. The second element is amatya, means the minister. So, in its narrow sense, the term amatya or mantri is used for the minister of the high grade. So, Kautilya describes an elaborate system of recruitment of the Amatyas and other officials who were to be morally and ethically pure and honest in financial matters and good character. So, the Amatyas were expected to be natural born citizens, persons of noble origin, free from all vices, men of infallible memory, friendly nature, wisdom, patience, and endurance. So the king was expected to appoint only wise men to these offices as they were to be his trusted advisors. So these ministers were not only to advise the king whenever their advice was sought, so they were also to maintain the secrecy of their deliberation. So, and the third one is Janapada. Janapada means the people and the territory. So the unique element of Saptanga is the symbol of state, which stands for a territorial society. Here, Jana denotes people and Pada is a symbol of territory, where these inhabitants permanently reside. So, D.R. Bandukar and R.S. Sharma are of the view that Kautilya's Janapada includes not only territory but also population. So, Kautilya prescribes the some requisites of prosperous Janapada in terms of territory. One is accommodate and support people. The second one is defend the state against enemies. Third one is find occupation of people. Fourth, have manageable neighbors. Fifth, to provide pasture and have arable land, mines, forests, and provide good internal communication, uh, that is rivers, roads, and outlet to sea. So the fourth element is Durga, fortification or fort. So the Kautilya regarded fortification as essential for the defense and protection of the state. So he wanted the state to fortify the territories from all sides. He has described four types of fortification, which include Audak, Parvat, Dannava, and Vana. Of these categories, the first two are used for the protection of the territory, and the remaining two are used for the protection of farmers. So these fortifications thus would not only protect the people and the capital, but would also be suitable for fighting purposes. That is for both defensive and offensive purposes. So the fifth one is kosha, which means the treasury. So the flourishing economy is essential for the existence of the state in all times and circumstances. So that is probably why the philosophers of ancient India looked at treasury as an essential element of the state. So Kautilya wanted a prosperous treasury. He specifically directed the king to earn the wealth of nation only by legitimate the right overs means in no way by unfair and immoral means. So, for the collection of revenue, Kautilya suggested uh, some legitimate sources. One is various forms of land taxes and the duty levied on the sale of commodities in the market, and the tax on imports and exports, and miscellaneous taxes also. So, and the sixth element of Saptanga theory is Danda, the army or the force. So, the Kautilya accepted a strong and hereditary Kshatriya army as the most important requisite of the state. So he insisted on the hereditary army as it would not only be skilled, well contended, and obedient to the king's will, so but also be free from duplicity. So such an army would serve both the defensive and offensive purposes of the king. Hence, it was obvious for Kautilya to pay great attention to the maintenance and organization of the army. So he suggested uh, so so in Kautilya's Ardhashastra, uh, we find him mentioning as many of half of a dozen heads of departments, namely the in charge of armory, naval forces, cavalry, elephants, chariots, and infantry. So the last element of the Saptanga theory is Mitra, the Ali. So having realized that political isolation means death, so Kautilya proceeded to consider the Mitra or the Ali as a vital factor. So Kautilya recognizes two kinds of Alis, namely Sahaja and Kritrima. So the Sahaja or naturally is one whose friendship is derived from the times of his father and grandfather, and who is situated close to the territory of the immediately neighboring enemy. So on the other hand, Kutrima, the acquired ally is one whose friendship is specially resorted to for the protection of wealth and life. So Kautilya, however, preferred an Ali who is traditional, permanent, disciplined, and enthusiastic, and from whom the possibility of opposition or rebellion is minimum. So, in conclusion, the Kautilya's concept of state is, however, vividly reflected in his description of angas or elements of the state. So he did not specifically define the term state, as he was essentially a man of action and not a theorist. So his concern for and emphasis on the internal and external security of the state was to save humanity from a sort of Habesian state of nature. So Saptanga theory is a vivid manifestation of Kautilya's deeper understanding of not only the political nature of man, but also the functioning of his political institutions, especially the state. So this is the Kautilya's Saptanga theory. So If you see, our next topic is Buddha, Gautama Buddha. So we have the syllabus of Buddha in the course outline, in the chapter outline, we have doctrine of Dhamma, doctrine of Karma, and Buddhist political ideas, which includes the statecraft, quality of the king, and the Buddhist concept of democracy. So, firstly, we have to know about the history of Gautama Buddha. So, Gautama Buddha is a renowned philosopher and saint turned priest. So he sacrificed all worldly pleasures in search of the supreme truth and enlightenment. So he always thought of emancipation of human beings. So his concept of Dhamma is a central belief of Buddhism, which means to uphold. So it basically means the Dhamma holds up the religion and the natural order of the universe. So, many followers are there about the ideas and the concept of Dhamma. So, one of the major religion in those days. So, Dhamma means it's the philosophy of the Buddha. So, in India, Buddhism is one of the major ideas of uh, Gautama Buddha started around 2600 years ago as a way of life that has a potential of transforming a person. So it is one of the important religions of South and Southeastern Asian countries. So the religion is based upon the teachings and life experiences of its founder, Siddhartha Gautama. So was born in Sirsa in 563 BCE. So he was born into royal family of Sakya clan who ruled from Kapilavastu in Lumbini, which is situated near the Indo-Nepal border. So at the age of 29, Gautama left home and rejected his life and riches and embraced a lifestyle of asceticism. So our extreme self-discipline. After 49 consecutive days of meditation, Gautama Buddha attained Bodhi, enlightenment under a pipal tree at Bodhi Gaya, a village in Bihar. So Buddha gave his first sermon in the village of Sarnath, nearby city of Banaras in Uttar Pradesh. This event is known as Dharma Chakra Parivartana, turning of the wheel of the law. So he died at the age of 80 in 483 BC E at the place called Kushinagara, a town in Uttar Pradesh. The event is known as Mahaparinirvan. So, the main teachings of Buddhism are encapsulated in the basic concept of four noble truths are Arya Satchani and eightfold path are Ashtangika Marga. So, four noble truths are suffering, dukkha, is the essence of the world. Every suffering has a cause, samudaya, and suffering could be extinguished, that is nirodha, and it can be achieved by following the Ashtanga Marga, eightfold path, these four noble truths delivered by Gautama Buddha, and his eightfold paths are to consist of various interconnected activities related to knowledge, conduct, and meditative practices. One is right view, another one is right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right mindfulness, right effort, right concentration. So this is eightfold path. uh, uh, the dukkha and its existence are central to the Buddha's doctrine. Suffering is not limited to the actual pain, but also the potential to experience these things. So, the essence of Buddhism is the attainment of enlightenment. So, it points to a way of life that avoids self-indulgence and self-denial. So there is no supreme God or deity in Buddhism. So the ultimate goal of Buddha's teaching was the attainment of Nibbana, which was not a place but an experience and could be attained in life. So Buddha also established code of conduct both for the monastic order and the laymen to follow, which are also known as the five precepts or Panchali, and refrain from them. So they are violence, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying or gossip, taking intoxicating substances, example, drugs or drinks. So the teachings were rehearsed and authenticated at the first council and were divided into Pitakas in 483 BC. So the Pitakas is the uh, official monument of Buddhism. So teaching were written down around 25 BCE in Pali. So the Pitakas are uh, the Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka and Abhidhamma Pitaka. So Vinaya Pitaka consists of rules of conduct and discipline applicable to the monastic life of the monks and nuns. The Sutta Pitaka consists of the main teachings of uh, Dhamma of Buddha. So it is divided into five Nikayas or collections. So Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Samyukta Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, Uddaka Nikaya. So these five Nikayas are included in the Sutta Pitaka. Uh, we call it as Dhamma. So the third one is Abhidhamma Pitaka, is a philosophical analysis and systematization of the teaching and the scholarly activity of the monks. So, other important Buddhist texts include Divyavadana, Deepavamsa, Mahavamsa, Milindpanha, etc. So, the Buddhist councils marked important turning points in the early Buddhism. These councils resulted in sectarian clashes and eventual break that resulted in the two major schools, Theravada and Mahayana. So, uh, There are four councils are there. So, and also different schools of Buddhism also there. Mahayana, Hinayana, Theravada, and Vajrayana, and so the Buddha had two kind of disciples. One is monks, bhikshus, or lay worshippers, upasikas. So these two types are disciples lives in Buddhism. So the monks were organized into the sangha for the purpose of spreading of the teachings of Gautama Buddha, and the Sangha was governed on democratic lines and was empowered to enforce discipline among its members. So, owing to the original organized efforts made by the Sangha, Buddhism made rapid progress in North India even during Buddha's lifetime. So, after death of Buddha, his followers traversed on his path of meditation and roamed throughout the countryside. For 200 years, Buddhism remained overshadowed by their Hindu counterparts until the advent of great Mauryan king Ashoka. So, after bloodbath in his Kalinga conquest, Emperor Ashoka decided to give up the policy of worldly conquest and adopted Dhamma conquest. So, Ashoka, during the Third Buddhist Council, dispatched various Buddhist missions to different areas such as Gandhara, Kashmir, Greece, Sri Lanka, Burma, Egypt, and Thailand. Through his missionary effort, Ashoka spread Buddhism into West Asia, and Ceylon, that a local religious sect, was transformed into world religion. And also the concept of ahimsa was its chief contribution. Later it became one of the cherished values of our nation. So its contributions to the art of architecture of India was notable. The Rupas of Sanchi, Barhut, and Gaya are wonderful pieces of architecture. It promoted education through residential universities like those at Takshila, Nalanda, and Vikramashila. So the language of Pali and other local languages developed through the teachings of Buddhism. It also promoted the spread of Indian culture to other parts of Asia. So, so, so other Buddhist teachings and Buddhist political thought we will discuss in tomorrow's class. So, as of now, I am concluding the session. We will meet again on tomorrow's class. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
I am concluding the session. Thank you.